So, a very good evening to all of you, all those who would be attending the session, and all those who might be attending the session in the later period of time. A very good evening. We are today at the instance where we are entering our last four classes, which is pertaining to week 9, week 10, week 11, and week 12. So now we are in the last leg of sessions for the live sessions for this particular course on incubation and entrepreneurship. And so today is September 23rd, and probably by mid of October, we'll be concluding all our live sessions. There is a possibility that we also have one extra session for probably 1 hour duration after the October 14th, which is going to be the last session. I mean, that last date may be a possibility of shifting to the next day, which is the Sunday. But that information will be shared with all the students in due course, and so that will require some mechanism to discuss with the NPTEL team, and then probably we'll be able to finalize on that. Regarding the 1 hour session, that is basically which we have been requesting the NPTEL team to have one extra summary session, which will be probably a 1 hour session after we conclude our 12-week journey. And that session is not specific to any particular um, sharing of set of questions. I mean, that would be more in terms of understanding, how the entire course went for each and every student. If they faced any challenges, what was their experience of this entire journey. I mean, whether they have attended the live sessions or not, but then they would have been going through the course. They would have been submitting the week-wise assignments. So any kind of questions, queries, which is from that perspective, we'll try to capture it. We'll try to address it. And if there are certain things which require intervention from the NPTEL team, then probably we'll take up those things, and we'll try to forward those questions and queries to the relevant team members. So that is the idea about having one hour session after we conclude our 12-week journey. Um, and I think within October only we'll be having the final examination for this course. And I really do hope that all the learners who are actively participating in it, who are submitting the assignments in a timely manner, they have registered for the course examination, and probably they are also simultaneously preparing for that exam as well. So there were a lot of enrollments for this course, and I hope that we have those kind of numbers turning up at the examination centers as well, to conclude this journey into something which is much more tangible outcome of a marks and then a certificate. So that was some brief idea. We have got one learner in the this session right now. Bhavna, how are you doing? And if you can share a few things.
हेलो सर।
Hello.
सर ऑनेस्टली इस हफ्ते मैं नहीं कर पाई कोर्स। सो आई थॉट कि शायद सेशन लेके कुछ लर्निंग मेरी हो जाए। एक्चुअली एज यू नो दैट आई एम also working, so this week was quite busy, so I couldn't take out time to go through the course structure and then the videos and all.
All right.
I'm
So,
just
so
being honest.
that is fine. That's completely fine. Uh, okay. Okay. So that is not an issue. So basically, what I've understood is that you are attending these sessions out of curiosity, to gather more learning, and probably, one another stint into entrepreneurship that you might want to, step into. Is it correct?
Yes, 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 sir. Yes, absolutely.
Okay. So, Bhavana, could you tell, I mean, down the line, I mean, what is your plan? I mean, you said that you would want to get into entrepreneurship once again, and I would want to know, I mean, what, I'm just curious to know, I mean, would you want to get
Um,
into the same segment which you were working in previously, or would you want to do something which involves whatever you are doing currently, or this would be something completely different, which is more oriented towards your interest and passion?
so right now, I don't think I will do the same. I mean, I will work in the same area which I was working because अब तक जितना course किया है, I have realized that there were a lot of mistakes I did.
Okay.
We did as a team, I can say. तो अगर उसको ओवरकम करेंगे so that business may not work. So I think I will think fresh, and I think I will do something which I am more passionate about than what I'm currently working. Obviously, what I work, I'm also passionate about that. But mm, कुछ और भी रहता है. I mean, जिसमें you are more into it, or I can give my 100%. So I think I will go with that. But अभी इतनी ज़्यादा मुझे क्लैरिटी नहीं है. So since you asked, so I just answered.
So, I mean, you are still looking for that opportunity in terms of which area to get into,
Yes.
and although it would be something which is more close to you, to your, interest, more close to your passion. That's what
Yes, yes, sir. Because sir, अगर passion नहीं रहेगा work में, so I don't think I can succeed.
that
But
is
at the
true.
same time, I will have to see other factors कि I mean user है, market है, demand है. I mean there are plenty of things to see, but the area is something I have to think about. And secondly, I'll have to first build my team. Then only I can think of going ahead.
So in this courses, we have looked in a lot of experts from industry, from incubation centers, faculty members, professors, and they shared their, different point of views. So in one of
Mm.
the sessions, as far as I could recall, one said that, you should first build a team and then go about, developing an idea or concept to work upon. And then
Mm.
while the other, or probably the other mindset is that you first have an idea and then you try to bring in people who kind of think alike, or are more supportive of that
Mm-hmm.
idea. Okay, what is your perspective on this? I mean, these are the two.
Sir, I think, I mean, this is my personal opinion.
Yes, yes.
I think before the idea also, I should have my team in place because the passion which I have should actually match the others. Everyone should put equal effort and heart into it. uh, Unless that, I don't think the business can succeed. So I will still prefer building a team than ideating or getting into an idea.
So this also leads to a question that, you said you're working, and then if you plan to form a team, probably everybody wants to have certain income right now. And
Yeah.
so probably people want to have a sustainable source of income before they get into, something which is a startup, or so how would you go about, identifying a team? Because that's a
So
challenge in
team,
itself.
yeah. So I understand, but right now I'm thinking team will be like a partnership. So everyone will equally be a partner of that company. So the expectations will be equal from everyone, and everyone will be the owner. So I think that should solve the problem. Everyone will think on their own how to survive and mm, get the money, like for daily expense.
Okay, okay. Got it. Got it. So in one of these sessions earlier, there was one lady who was, I think she was from Sign, and she basically was talking about, how important it is that when you have something to begin with, and when you start, looping in people and forming a team, the importance of having, the contracts placed in right way, formulated in the right way, because many a times what happens is that they've seen startups within their incubators that one of the co-founders left the startup, and then the entire startup collapsed. And while in the other case, there was a need of bringing in some people for marketing of their product, but then obviously their role was not that intense in terms of those people who had basically originated the idea, and they had took the startup to a certain level. So many a times, having equal partnership is challenging. However, it's not something which is impossible. It could be, given the fact that you get the right people with the right temperament and with the right attitude. But many a times, we don't see that happen, and which eventually leads to a lot of legal filings, and the cases of things like that. I hope you understand. So it is very, very important and critical that when you are starting to move things in, you take some kind of hand holding support from an incubator, because those people are basically into this field. They have seen a lot of startups. They have a lot of experience to share with, and they can actually help you in terms of avoiding these kind of troubles later on in your journey. So something which you might face down the line is something they would prepare you well in advance, so that these scenarios don't turn up in an ugly scenario, right? So
Yes,
that
yes.
is, yeah, yeah.
Sure,
So
sir. I'll definitely do that. That's a good idea, actually, to
yeah, in fact, I
more
mean,
that precautionary thing.
correct, correct. So if you go through these courses, you will see that how in different institutions there are so many incubators. So even within one institution there are many incubators, but then they are kind of addressing different domains. So, for example, like today we will be talking about the incubation setup and facilities at IIT Hyderabad. And within IIT Hyderabad, they have, 3 to 4 kind of, incubators who are kind of addressing and catering to certain different domain. So, say for example, they have an ethics center which basically deals with deep technology. So then they don't get into things like furniture design or grocery related stuff. So they have a very narrow focused dimension of working on uh, based on their ideology and philosophy. Likewise, there is this CFHE, which is about healthcare, and they focus on basically the health related startups. And then you have fab related one, which is basically into the chip industry. So within the same institution, you have 3 to 4 bodies who are offering the same kind of incubation things, but then they have different domains. So which means that they are much more experty if you have a startup aligning to that. So that is where this particular week 9 is about. We are bringing in people from IT Hyderabad only. We have Professor Surya, Professor Renu, and Professor Nakul, who would be sharing a lot of things in this particular module. And based on those learnings, we have a new set of questions. So I think now we can actually begin with the presentation. Do you have anything more to add, or we can proceed?
No, sir. Thank you. I mean, I'll also do some research on the incubation incubators and all.
Sure. I think if you go through the NPTEL platform, I think you would be able to see a lot of things moving on in this particular direction. So before IT Hyderabad, it was about IIT Bombay and the kind of incubation facilities they have there. Now we are shifting the ways to IIT Hyderabad, and we are trying to understand, what kind of setup they have, what kind of facilities they have, and if somebody has a startup pertaining to those areas, I think those people can actually apply and get into their incubation facilities. So even in IIT Hyderabad, they are getting support from the government of Japan, and they are kind of building a very very huge incubation center. And one of the very interesting thing which Professor Surya talked about from that perspective was that usually when you have startups working in a similar area, there is chances of stealing and things like that happening. So the kind of built environment which they are making right now at Hyderabad, one of the largest ones, they're ensuring that although they have that kind of individual silos, but then it's also important to collaborate and to understand what is happening. So the kind of spatial layout is in such a way that you have got that privacy enabled through the space, but at the same time they also allow the different building blocks to intermingle. So I'm not sure how that's gonna work eventually, but then that is something we can look for. Yes, Bhavna, please tell.
Sir, can you guide me in short only, like how to actually approach these incubation centers? Whether they only call for startups, or I mean, we have to apply, or how is it? I mean, just in short, if you can explain.
Okay. So I think that is a question which a lot of students and a lot of people who are actually wanting to, build a startup, or they're in a particular stage they would want to get into. So thank you for asking that question. So whatever I've understood up till now from these, lectures is that uh, all these premier institutions, they do have their incubation facilities, and depending upon where you are in, so where you are in, what I mean is that at what stage your startup is in, they take the people in according to that. So if you are at a very conceptual level, but you have some kind of strong backend information and on ground understanding of things, accordingly you will be looped into one of their stage wise programs. So what they do is that they divide the entire incubation process into different stages. Like there is something called as germination, there is something called as pre-incubation, then incubation, and likewise. So they will see that where is it that your startup is falling into. If you already have a product which is already in the market, now you want to accelerate, so they would want to adopt you into an accelerator module where they can help you in terms of scaling up your operations, right? So likewise, if you need help with the germination stage, there also they provide hand holding and mentorship. If you are into a pre incubation stage, there also they provide into. Now the question about how do you approach them or they so many times what happens is that these incubation centers, there are a couple of ways. So one could be that they conduct some kind of hackathon, and you maybe you are a student team, or you are a team of individuals who are working. If you have an idea, you participate into that hackathon, which will be of a certain duration. So like 1 week, 2 weeks. So depending upon how you perform or how much value you have in your idea, they might if you are the winning team, then obviously you would get into their adoption model. But even if you're not in the winning teams, then also they if you want to take your idea ahead, you can very well deep dive into their different modules. So like I said, there are different stages in which the startups, according to their own stage, they can get into these incubators. The incubators, on the other hand, they themselves also organize these kind of hackathons. These could be theme based. So let's say, for example, an incubator which deals into medical tech. can have an hackathon around it. And if you are also having an idea in this kind of dimension, you can actually pitch into that. Usually hackathons will have a team, and even if you are individual, they might form a team, and accordingly, you can then progress. The other way is that you have an idea and you write to them. Usually, they have their own form, or they would also ask you to fill your data into a lean, business canvas model, wherein you have your customers, your basically your target audience, your revenue modules, what is your cost structure, what is the kind of USP you are saying, and likewise they have a lot of questionnaire involved in that. And what you can do is that you can actually fill those details in, and if obviously they will have some kind of selection process, some kind of filtration thing, and if they feel that this you have something promising, then probably they will ask you to come and pitch your proposition. And if they find value in it, and if they feel that this is something which requires some kind of support and can actually bring a lot of comfort, a lot of relief to the people, and kind of address the right problem, then probably you can get onboarded into their incubation centers with with facilities of infrastructure, networking, mentorship, as well as seed funding. So all that you can actually get through these incubators. So let me know if I was able to
Okay.
answer your question to a certain extent.
Yes. Yes, sir. Thank you so much.
Okay, okay. So we'll now be starting the presentation. Just give me a minute and then I'll start, and please let me know if you're able to see the screen then. Okay. Just give me a heads up if you're able to see my screen.
Yes.
All right. So we'll begin our session today. This is the week ninth of our 12-week journey. The course name is Understanding Incubation and Entrepreneurship. The course instructor is Professor V.K. Chakravarti sir, who is from IDC School of Design, IIT Bombay. My name is Abhishek. I am pursuing my PhD from IIT Roorkee as of now. From an educational background, I'm an architect and industrial designer. And from a experience perspective, I've worked in organizations like Infosys, Think Design, and I had my own startup as well. And after that, I got into teaching, and I taught at institutions like SPA Delhi, uh, World University of Design, and then UP Institute of Design. And like I said, now I'm currently into my research journey, and I'm into my second year of my PhD studies as of now. So going further now, what is the general agenda? So the initial few slides, as I've mentioned in my previous sessions as well, are basically same. It's basically a protocol in which I try to explain more about the course, the overview of the course, and how are the questions posted. I mean, what kind of typology the questions possess, and some details into what has happened up till now. So it will be like a very brief recap of the content which we have covered, and then we'll also get into some minute details of how the NPTEL platform portal works, what are the different heads, and if you click on that, what happens. So many a times what happens is that while we are going through the course and attempting the questions, we are completely focused on the content and submitting the assignment. But then there are also many other features which the NPTEL portal entails in. For example, It also shows you your progress in terms of how far you are going through the content. So there is a scale of how much you have gone into the content, as well as there is a scale and a value which also determines your kind of scores of your weekly assignments, right? So apart from that, there is a feature of transcripts, so which is basically a PDF which you can actually download and go through the content. So that is also a kind of summarized version, so which will help you eventually, when you are preparing for your examinations. Okay. All right. So these sessions are basically to help you in the current run of courses. So by current run of courses, we mean basically, we are discussing about week 9, but week 10 course content is also live now. So those who are working, going through it, they can actually do it quickly and reach out the content in much more you know uh, pace up manner, what you can say. All right. Okay. What we basically do in these sessions is that we kind of discuss and solve week specific previous year assignments. So we have 10 set of questions from the previous year. Sometimes I also add a few questions just to give a flavor of how the questions can actually be asked. So these are basically 10 set of questions, and these are week specific. Okay, what do you mean by week specific? Week specific basically means that since we are into the week 9, so this will be week 9 related questions. All right. Okay, we also respond to the questions asked in the discussion forum. So you can actually post your questions there, and it becomes visible to all. And when I reply, then again it becomes visible to all. So it's a great platform, and you must leverage it to you know get your query addressed. Okay. Recap of the ongoing week. So what we also do is that not only for the ongoing week, we also give a quick summary from week 1 to the current thing, which is week 9. So basically the idea is that we are able to see how well we have been progressing. And once we complete the set of 10 questions, we then also have a recap. So basically recap is the snapshots of lectures of going week. All right. Okay. Uh, so since there are people who are joining in and going off as well, so there is a lot of disturbance at the same time, and you also would be aware that there is a need of uploading all these things into YouTube. So what we do is that we basically record these sessions. Okay. These recorded sessions are then uploaded on YouTube, and the idea is very simple that learners are engaged into studies, they are into their professional work, so they might not get the right time. And the idea is that whenever they get time, in a self-paced way, they are able to access the course content, they are able to go through the course content and attend these live sessions. All right. So that is the basic idea. And if you have any questions, you can unmute yourself and raise your question. You can also utilize the Gmeet ka messages option. But if you ask me discussion forum, and utilizing the chat message. I would prefer that you use the discussion forum. The reason being the same, that the questions asked in the discussion forum are basically visible to all, and once it is visible to all, it also helps me in terms of answering and making sure that the answer reaches to all the learners. Okay, so in this discussion forum, basically you have people from the NPTEL team, you have me as your individual conducting the live sessions, and then you also have all the learners who are enrolled for this session, for this course basically. Okay, so we have got these three stakeholders, and whatever we post, it reaches out to all these three. So that's where the idea is that we are able to keep everybody on the same page, on the same platform, and we are able to get the query address, because there could be queries related to the technical uh, point of view, there could be queries related to the content point of view. So since we have all those people, so I think both the genre of queries can actually be addressed through our discussion forum platform. Okay, and basically this is how your uh, platform looks like. Whatever mail you have logged in, you'll be able to see. This is the different tabs: the announcement section, the course, ask a question, progress. And so on this particular side, you will see the week-wise content. Announcement section basically talks about the course content releases plus the assignments plus the solutions. Okay. And probably going forward, it'll also announce about the examination and admit cards and things like that. Okay, so keep a tab on this section. Not only they post it in this platform, but they also email it to you. So there's also a feature of this platform that if you think that there are too many emails coming from NPTEL, although it is good because it basically helps you be reminded about your assignments and what are the next critical steps. But if you feel that you would want to unscribe from this particular things, in the same page at the bottom you can actually see option to unsubscribe. Okay, so that is also visible to you. I would suggest that do not unsubscribe, because it basically helps you as a constant reminder of attempting your assignments, as well as going for the critical announcement about your examination, right? So from that perspective, I feel that you should not turn it off. But if the scenario is different, then you can probably use that functionality as well. Okay. Now, detailing a bit more into the recording and presentation location, as I mentioned that all these lectures, all these live sessions, not not lectures, obviously, all these live sessions are basically recorded, and these recordings are available in my channel, which is under the name of Abhishek Srivastava. So this is the link, and this is the link for the annotated live session presentations. So basically what I also do is that these presentations, these are converted into PDF, and these PDFs are basically uploaded into the shared drive folder, so that not only through the YouTube, but even if you don't have that kind of access to YouTube, or that kind of bandwidth of your internet, you can actually download that presentation. You can see what has been annotated. Probably you will get some brief idea about uh, how to go about and what was discussed in these sessions. Now these are listed, but then there is no need of typing it down or noting it, because uh, when you click on here, it actually leads you to a page which says click here, which actually leads you to an Excel sheet. And this Excel sheet has week wise details. Okay. So, what do you mean by week wise? Say, for example, we have got week one, you have the YouTube link and the drive folder. Okay. Similarly, you have week two, you have week three, you have week four, you have the YouTube links for all these sessions along with the drive. Now, the good thing about Google Drive is that it is just one link and all the PDFs are uploaded in that. All right. However, these week-wise YouTube videos are separate, and for each week there is a YouTube link. I hope that is quite clear for you all. Okay, so this is the brief preview of the course. The course title is Understanding Incubation and Entrepreneurship. The instructor is Professor V.K. Chakravarti sir. This course is having a run of 12 weeks, and we are currently into the ninth week. Okay. And the assignment for week 9 has a deadline of 27th. Okay. So please, keep a note of it. You have got, I think, 4 more days to submit the assignment. And the final examination date is 28th October as of now. So I have not got any recent update, but for any reason it gets updated or changed, you will obviously receive it on your emails as well as in the announcement section. Now, another thing which is kind of important is that I've written these 2 times. Okay, so what happens is that when you would have filled the form for examination and this thing, you would have opted for certain designated centers, and at the same time you can actually make a choice of whether you want to participate in the pre-lunch session or the post-lunch sessions. Okay, so since it will be a physical examination, by physical I mean that you will have to be present at the examination center along with your admit card, which will be obviously given to you before your exam date. And these will be almost 3 hour duration examination, which you'll have to uh, physically, you have to attend in person in that particular center. The center is something which is you would have opted. So you would have, in an hierarchical format, you would have opted for 3 locations, and accordingly based on a lot of data and backend, they will allot you one of the centers, and so you'll have to go there and you have to sit for the exams. Ideally 2 slots are given. First of all, depending upon the ease and comfort of the learner, you can opt for one of these. Also, the idea is that it may be a possibility that one individual has taken multiple courses. So in one day, actually, you can have 2 examinations. Okay, so pre-lunch you can attend one for one subject, and the post-lunch session also you can attend one. Okay. All right. Okay, I've got one more learner, Sujay. Hi, Sujay.
Hi, sir.
Hi, how are you doing?
Uh,
All well?
yeah, I'm good. How about you, sir?
Yeah, yeah, I'm also fine. I'm also
Yeah.
fine. Good to see you.
Okay. Yes, sir. Even it's after 2, 3 sessions, I think.
Yes, 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 yes. So could you tell me, Sujay? I mean, actually, Bhavna was there initially, and I was talking to her about, how have she progressed and what her plans are. Could you tell us about, how far you have been able to submit the assignments and, going through the content? Have you
Yeah.
gone through the?
Yes. Actually, till now it's doing good. I think in one of the assignment, I think I got 90 and in one 97. Other than that, till 8th, all 100 is there. So the, I could answer all the questions, so no problem in that. But sometimes I think after fifth week, I think there will be one or two questions will be will not get the answer. Even I will get the answer, but we need to analyze. I think one or two questions will be there. I don't know whether I am feeling like that or not, but. Even though if we listen to or if we watch all the videos, listen to videos, but somewhere I couldn't find in this. I mean, clear answer. I'm not saying like the,
Hmm.
yeah,
I got your point. I think some things have been kept intentionally. I mean, it's more like reading between the lines kind of scenarios where,
yeah, maybe.
yeah,
So,
maybe.
what happens actually, the assignments are depending on the video which we watch, and we couldn't find any materials also. I mean, outside. If we go for any this one also, will not find the same material, and the views of other authors or other resource persons may be different from the resource person which we are watching. So maybe that may be the problem with us. So that's
That
it
is true.
only.
That is true. I mean, we like in the beginning of the session as well, I pointed out that, we have got different people from different background and different experiences, and they have shared their different, thought processes. So it is a possibility
Yes.
like that. So that will happen. But in terms of download, I think you should also explore the one of the features of the NPTEL platform, which allows you to download all the transcripts. Okay. So
Yeah, but sir, in this one transcripts, I don't know. Only I could find only five. This one, I think. First
yes, yes, yes.
three. Yeah, yeah.
That's true. I mean, the content in the transcript is only till week 5. So I have raised this issue with the NPTEL team, and I have not got any response as yet from them. So I hope that, they would be uploading the other, documents soon.
Okay, sir. Sir, actually, I'm having one doubt in lean canvas. This one. It's will come. So I'm not much clear about key metrics and early adopters. Two things like, I mean, early adopters, okay, but in some of the cases, how to, I mean, recognize our early adopters. So that I am not much clear about that.
And the other thing was,
Other key metrics.
can you elaborate on the content of key metrics?
It's in the this one only the out of nine parameters, or we can say in that one of the thing it is key metrics. But in that for Uber, they were saying something about I don't remember actually this one
I
some
think
points
this
they
this
were
is
telling.
basically related to the week 8 content, is it so?
Yes, wicket, yes, wicket content.
Okay, okay, okay. All right. Probably, in the previous week we could have discussed it because there's a lot of content,
Okay,
and
okay, fine, fine,
yeah,
fine.
to relate and get back to it is becomes little tricky at some time.
Fine, fine, fine. Okay.
Okay. Okay. But what we'll do is, I mean, I'll keep a note of it. What you can also do is that you can post your query precisely in the discussion forum, so that in the next
Okay.
session we can actually take it up and we can, have a more detailed discussion on that.
Okay. Okay. Fine. Fine.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. So then I'll conclude, start, continue my presentation. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. So now this is basically the progress tab, wherein you can actually see your assessment scores. Now, assessment score basically talks about how well you have performed week wise. So for each week, you'll be able to see marks which you have got out of 100. So something, if you have performed exactly well, you will get 100. If it is there are some incorrect responses, you'll get some lower marks. The idea is to help you evaluate how you have been progressing, how you have been performing each week. Okay. And there is this unit wide progress also, which basically pertains into, I mean, how have you been able to read the content? How well have you seen the entire content? And this is the basically the course progress, how far we have been reached in terms of our 12-week journey. Okay. Now the course is free, so anybody who would want to learn from the course, who would want to understand what are the different facilities, what are the different incubation setups offered by the IITs and which are discussed in this platform. So for them, it is completely free. But what I've also seen is that a lot of students have been taking up this course, and the idea is that they are also kind of fulfilling their credit requirement in their academic courses. And for them, it becomes important that they qualify the exam and they earn a certificate. Okay. So basically, they need to learn and they need to earn the certificate. Okay. So like I mentioned, I mean, these examinations will be conducted at Designation Examination Center. Obviously, the date as of now is 28th of October. And so for them who are participating and earning a certificate, there is a nominal fee of 1,000 rupees, which probably those who are willing to take up the examination would have already paid, as the last date of registration for examination was 28th of August. Okay. Now, this slide basically talks about the criteria of earning a certificate. Although it's quite clear, but let me explain it very briefly. So we have got something called as internals, we have got something called as externals, and then we have the total. Okay. So what happens is that internals are basically your week-wise quizzes or assignments. External will be your examination, which will be held in a physical mode. And total is basically sum of A and B. Well, the catch here is that internals have a weightage of 25%, external have 75%, and this sums up to the 100%. Okay. Now, individually, what needs to be done is that in internals, one has to gain more than 10 marks out of 25. In external, it should be more than equal to 30 out of 75. And in total, it needs to be more than, sorry, out of 75. Okay. So one needs to meet these criteria individually, as well as, obviously, if you meet this individually, the total will be met by default. Okay. So once you have this kind of marking, which is more than 40 out of 100, sorry, then you would be earning a certificate. Okay. Now, this is basically a glimpse of how we have progressed from week 1 to week 9. We started with the introduction, what are the different setups like GDC and what is lean startup, what are the mistakes of startups. We went into week 2, where we understood the story of Mustafa, who's from basically ID Batter. We went into the week 3, which was about methodology of innovation, the 7 concerns, the processes of innovation as explained by Professor Chakravarti. Then we got into week 4, which was about the ideas program by IIT Bombay and the Solar One case study by their student Avinash, who's also kind of turning it up into a startup. Going forward, the week 5 was about healthcare and innovation, which had a lot of tech success stories. Week 6 was about two experts, Ms. Shilpi and Ms. Dhayan, who were IIT Bombay alumni. who discussed about their startups in the names of Coach Labs and F1 Studios. Then we talked about the humanizing technology and business model canvas. And in week 8, it was about the sign incubator, the lean model canvas, and the success story of Atomberg. And yesterday only I was actually viewing television and I saw one of the television ads about Atomberg fan. They're Renaissance fan. So I was able to relate it and I could actually see, something which we have just discussed about is actually being seen in television. So I think that is the kind of impact that this particular startup is creating, and the value it has created. All right. So now coming on to the week 9, it is centered around the facilities at IIT Hyderabad, and their incubation center is called as ETIC. To elaborate, it is IIT Hyderabad Technology Incubation Center, and then they also have CFHE, which is about the healthcare entrepreneurship. Uh, so for which Professor Renu John talks about it. Here, Professor Surya talks about it. And then, plan to action is where Professor Nakul, talks about it with many examples. Then we have something called as additional learning material. So which is a PDF which you can actually download and read more. I mean, the same typology of PDFs they have been adding in previous weeks as well. So one can actually download it and compile it. And whenever you have some relatively free time, you can actually go through those case studies as well. Okay, so there are two typology of questions. Uh, One is a radio button question, and the other is the multi-select questions. I hope by far now most of you would have understood, what it actually means. So in radio button questions, you have got only one correct response. Here it could be more than one. Okay. So for example, which soft drink do you want? I might select Pepsi or Coke or Fanta or Slice. But if you ask me what do you want in your milk tea, I want sugar, I might want ginger, I might want cardamom. All right. So likewise, I think up till now, most of you would have submitted the week-wise assignments, and it would be clear kind of how to attempt these questions. Probably in week 9, you might also see that apart from these four, you got one more option saying all of the above or none of the above. Okay, so there are certain questions wherein there is this some slight nuances into the number of options, but I think if you have gone through the content, it would be easier to attempt these questions. Okay, now talking about the marking scheme. We have been discussed this quite a lot of time, but then every session we might have new learners joining in, and that's where it becomes my duty to elaborate on how the marking actually happens. So there are basically three scenarios, and we will kind of understand the marking in all three scenarios. Okay, for example, there is a question and it has got option A, B, C, and D. And for which, say, for example, option A, C, and D are correct. Okay. Now let us go one by one and see what we are talking about. So scenario one says that, okay, this question had three correct responses and the individual chose A, C, and D. So you have ticked, all on the correct responses, which means that you'll be getting full marks. Okay, I think this is quite straightforward. Scenario two is that, you selected A, you selected B, you selected C. Okay. Now, although you have selected A and you have selected C, which were the correct responses, but you have also selected C, which was the incorrect response. If you select even one incorrect response, then you get no marks. And then you have finally scenario three, wherein there were three correct responses. You had certain doubts or whatever. You selected only C and D. You did not select A. So for C and D, you will get some partial marks. Okay. So in this scenario, you're getting marks. In this scenario, you're getting marks. In this scenario, you're not getting marks. Okay. So I hope while attempting your final exams as well, you can consider these kind of, underlying principles of marking. It could be different in the final exam, but then obviously they will mention it, how the marking pattern is, or, you can actually ask this before, attempting the final examination. So this is based on my understanding from the previous year inputs by the NPTEL team. And going forward, I think this might stay and then probably might change. So whatever it is, and the NPTEL team would be, describing it in detail. Okay, so now we begin our journey of 10 set of questions, which are basically week specifics, which means that, with week 9, whatever lectures one has gone through and attended, we have these questions listed down, and we will try to address and attempt these questions one by one. Okay, so the question says, as discussed by Professor Surya in module 9, select from below as appropriate. So this question is basically about selecting the right full form of the different abbreviations, the different incubation facilities which are there within IIT Hyderabad. So IIT Hyderabad has ITIC, as we discussed, they have CFHE, and they also have FabCI. So the question is open to the participants. If you would like to attempt, please share.
Uh, Sir, actually, I haven't gone through the videos.
Okay.
Few questions I can attempt, I think. Yeah, I mean, which are this one there is specific. I don't know about this one.
That's fine. I mean, if you have not gone through the content, but if you want, you can attempt it.
Okay. Yeah, it may be first incubation TIC.
So, Bhavna, if you are there, maybe you would like to attempt. So, Sujay says it could be the first. So, Sujay, if you can mute yourself, I mean, I'm getting some disturbances. Yeah, thank you, please. So, all right. So, Sujay said that, it could be the first one, which is the A, which is innovation, health, and energy. But what we can do is let me briefly describe, what these three facilities are. So all these three facilities are basically within the IT Hyderabad ecosystem, and each three basically caters to one specific domain or typology of startups. Okay, so now what we are doing is that each question is now basically supported by a screenshot or a snapshot of the lecture content, so that we are able to relate the content, and have certain markings that okay, this is pertaining to this particular segment of lecture. Okay, so to help you with, I mean, this is how Professor Surya presented their incubation facilities. So they've got ITIC, which is the first one. They have got CFHE, they have got FabCI. So ITIC is basically into the deep tech, or where it's around the technology related startups, which involves some deep involvement of technology and value creation. CFHE is about Center for Healthcare and Entrepreneurship. So it is, as the name suggests, it relates with the healthcare aspect. FabCI is about the chip design incubator. So, you are into electronics part of the segment. So depending upon the startups and their, dominant criterias of, one of these, they get into, incubated at these facilities. So there could be certain overlaps, but then whatever is probably they kind of review the applications, and then they decide that, okay, this is something which is pertaining to our area, our domain, and we'll be, taking those startups only. So what I recollect from the presentation was that Professor Surya talked about that, uh, grocery store or grocery market is also a startup idea, and likewise the furniture operations. But they could be value creating and doing a lot of things, but then they are kind of focusing on certain typology of startups only, right? So now if you go through the answers, the correct answer is option D, which is ITech is about deep tech, CFH is about the healthcare, and 5CI is about the electronics. Okay, so going further, as discussed in module 9 by Dr. Nakul Parmeshwar, an idea has a complex relationship with which of these aspects? Customer, compliments, supplier, and investor. डॉक्टर नकुल ने मॉड्यूल 9 में बताया था कि एक कॉम्प्लेक्स रिलेशनशिप होता है आइडिया का एक सर्टेन एस्पेक्ट से। वो एस्पेक्ट्स क्या क्या हैं? सो देयर कुड बी मल्टीपल राइट आंसर्स इन दिस क्वेश्चन, so you might want to think and then attempt it. You got customer, compliments, supplier, and investor. And this needs to be seen with respect of Professor Nakul, and he's talking about in module 9 about the complex relationship. Okay, so we have to see these terms in the context of Professor Nakul, and while he's explaining in module 9 about the complex relationship, right? So any thoughts, any suggestions, any point of view perspective for these options?
This one, customer and investor.
Okay, we have got responses for customer and investor. All right. Okay. Okay. So let me help you with the content part. Now, this is the content recap, and Professor Nakul was basically talking about startup as an idea. You have got a need to have very complex relationship with first one being your customers, second is your compliments, third is your supplier, and fourth is your substitute. So here we are not having investor from his perspective, obviously. So it's his understanding of the relationship of startup with these four segments, where the primary one is the customer, the secondary is complements, then your supplier, and then the substitute. So while explaining this particular chart, he said that, normally we use the term competitors, and he specifically has replaced it with substitutes. His thought process was that the moment you write competitors, it generates a kind of negative feeling, and any possibility of collaborations or taking help from them, or using their facilities, or kind of any kind of connection that cuts off the moment you term somebody as competitor, right? So that is why he has used the word substitute. I mean, what are the probable players in the market who can actually substitute what your offerings are, and the moment you have substitutes, you kind of generate a more positive sense of feeling towards that term, and then you don't see them as competitors or rivals, but then you actually see them as players who are there and who might replace you. So then, the option and possibilities of, collaborating with them, gets generated. So he also coined a very interesting term called competition, which is basically from corporate and competition. All right. And he explains this whole thing with an example of Nintendo, which is uh, providing gaming consoles. Which so the entire video game market was basically arcade based, and they would want to disrupt it by offering a personalized gaming console. So this is at a time when the kids used to go to a specific space wherein they had boxes kind of a thing, and they had to stand and play or sit or play. So that was the time when Nintendo was getting into the market, and they said that why these people have to face the limitation of space, why they can't play these games in their own house, in their own setup. And that is where they came into the market, and they kind of disrupted the whole video game industry by offering something which is customized and which can be actually plug and played into the environment of your homes. So that is where how that is how the gaming industry, they reached out to the homes of the users. And he was saying that at that point of time, each family had one or two kind of consoles of Nintendo that time. So although we don't hear the name quite often now, because it was something which was happening long back, but they kind of disrupted the entire video game industry. Okay, so now if you would want to see the correct answer, it is the customer, compliments, and supplier. We are not having investor in this particular picture. Going to the third question. As mentioned in be able. So let's try to read this as be able and not be able. Be able case study by Professor Renu. In module 9, what were some of the common issues faced by the people with neurological problems? Okay. Now, let me briefly explain about what case study we are talking about. So basically, this was a startup called Be Able, and they were kind of looking into the market wherein a lot of people, either who have suffered stroke or who had neurological problems, and people get paralyzed, and then their recovery process, or have met an accident because of which they have got generated some neurological problems. So their recovery is very challenging. They also showed a picture where there are 1.8 million, more than 1.8 million people who are actually suffering from these issues, but then there are very limited centers which offer kind of services in terms of health improvement, and then the number of people who can actually come to your home and help you with the exercises are again very very less. Okay. Besides that, they had a lot of challenges. Say for example, there is no way you are able to have a tangible way of assessing your progress. How far have you stretched, what is your weekly progress, all these things becomes very subjective when we are seeing, for example, physiotherapist person coming to your home and, helping you do certain exercises, right? So since there is no involvement of technology or, imaging cameras, which can actually track the kind of movements you are doing, it becomes very challenging to understand that how well you are progressing. So that is the area, that is the niche which these people actually, the startup people, they found out that, we need to capture these particular segment, and a lot can happen in this particular segment. Okay. So any thoughts in this particular thing?
CD, BCD.
BCD. Okay. Travel burden, lack of job opportunities, and lack of respect. Okay. Okay. Anyone else who would want to attempt? Bhavna, if you're there. Lack of digital documentation, travel burden, lack of job opportunities, and lack of respect. Okay, so let me share the screenshot which Professor Renu had shared while discussing this particular problem and startup. So, like I mentioned, there were two stakeholders into it. One was the patient, and the other one was the therapist, who is basically guiding the person who is suffering from neurological troubles. Now, one of the foremost thing was travel burden, as in that they had to travel to a particular center which might be distant, and many a times when you are suffering from these kind of neurological issues, it becomes quite hard, to even get down on board a vehicle or a public transport, reach to a center, and then get, those exercises done, which is a burden to you, because it is not only about, traveling that distance, but, you have users from different income groups as well, and wherein the cost will also matter, because if you are having some trouble with your hand and leg, and probably going in a public transport might be very, very challenging for you, and, bearing the cost of taxi services could be very, very costly. So, yes, there is a huge amount of travel burden. Obviously, when these kind of restrictions come in, people are dependent on other people, so the factor of dependency increases. But normally these sessions, they continue for months and months and weeks, and that is where, they start feeling bad about the caregivers, or the caregiver might as well, think that, okay, one or two sessions are fine, but then, eventually they kind of, their attitude also changes. So a lot of factors basically leads to a different mental state of the patient. It might also leads to depression. Okay. And like I mentioned about lack of objective assessment. So with the current practice, the physiotherapist would come and he would make you do certain exercises, making a circle or lifting up and down your hands. But then, there is no uh, quantitative assessment. वो हो नहीं रहा है, वो ऐसा assessment हो ही नहीं रहा है, because, कोई फीडबैक हमें नहीं मिल रहा है. इट इज समथिंग यू आर असेसिंग ऑन फ्रॉम योर पर्सनल perspective. And maybe, previous week you did few exercises, you were able to do it, but next week you're not able to do it. But then, we don't have a tangible kind of reference by which we can say that, okay, my progress has been better or it has worsened. Okay. Likewise, there were certain other issues of, neuroplasticity, because many a times what happens is that these physiotherapists, they have the limited time, and in that only they have to get the most out of it. And you have to do repetitive movements, which, becomes monotonous many a time. So that was again a very interesting area, and we'll see how they captured that as well. And there were these issues as well. Adherence, people don't adhere to the therapy, digital documentation, lack of centralized central documentation. So many times what happens is that while you're going for treatment, you have to carry your file, you have to get all your documents in order to understand, because many times what can happen is that, there is a different physiotherapy person who is available at your time of visit, and he might not be completely aware that what you did in the previous week, which required some kind of physical documentation. So every time you go, you need to carry a lot of stuff with you, so that the people who is going to help you with the physiotherapy would actually be able to make sure that this is far you have progressed, and these are the exercises which needs to be done in this particular week. Okay. So so the correct answer of this question is A, which is lack of digital documentation, and B, which is travel burden. Obviously, I mean, if you see from a broader perspective and not related to this particular case, these things are also there, right? Lack of job opportunities, lack of respect. But specifically, when we talk about Module 9 and what Professor Renu had shared, I mean, these are the two correct answers of this particular question. Now, going further, we'll also see, I mean, what product they kind of came up with, and how that product is utilizing the technology aspect in terms of tracking their progress, as well as tracking how well they are performing, and at the same time how you ensure that the user is basically engaged with the product, right? So that in itself is very, very interesting, because they are utilizing the power of games. They are utilizing the games in terms of engaging the people, in terms of motivating the people, right? So when you are doing physiotherapy, you need to do certain actions, right? Either you do this depending upon the kind of injury. So what they did was that all these actions were actually mapped to a certain activity, like you will have a bat and you'll have a mosquito, and using that activity you have to kill that mosquito. And this was one of the examples which was shared in the presentation in the lecture. So this is how they gamified this whole sequence of exercises, so that it does not remain monotonous, but at the same time you're able to calculate how many motions you are doing, how far you are able to stretch using image cameras, and all those stuff, and how much you have basically moved your hand in terms of kilometers. All those details, all those details are also getting into the picture. Okay, so the correct answer is lack of digital documentation and travel code. Coming to question number 4, as discussed by Professor Nakul in Module 9, the startup Organico, Organico makes a range of skincare product made from. Okay, so they are basically into making skincare products, and your options are donkey milk, cow milk, goat milk, and camel milk. So take some time, try to understand. By the way, Organico also came into Shark Tank, which is streamed by Sony TV. So anybody who's more interested into the startup, their, what is it that they are offering, what value they are creating, you can actually have a look at the video of Organico, uh, and their offerings. So take some time, try to understand, and suggest what could be the right answer.
Like if it is India company, then it's Indian only, I think. So then maybe goat milk only. I'm not sure goat or camel, because camel milk I heard it's a little thick, and it can be, but maybe goat milk maybe.
Okay, and what is the logic which you are suggesting? You said something, I could not hear it correctly.
Actually, this one camel milk is a little viscous. I mean, thicker. compared to other milk. I think as I heard that. So that may be easy to use it in cosmetics. So that's why I just uh, thought it may be. But as it's an Indian company, so the availability of camel milk will be less. So that's why I think it's the goat milk.
Hmm, hmm, hmm. Okay, okay. So, I mean, you do have a logic that is there. So, but if you see Organico, they are into donkey milk. So, it is said that, donkey milk is very moisturizing for skin and it nourishes the skin in depth. And it was an area which was untouched. I mean, even the people who own donkeys, they were basically using it for, luggage transfer. I mean, that is how they have been using donkeys up till now. So what they did was that they saw the potential into donkeys and they said that okay, the donkey milk has so much of importance in terms of skincare, and that is how they came up with the idea of having a skincare brand. And basically they have a luxury skin. They are into luxury skincare products. So there they have a very niche audience wherein people who are basically ready to pay this much amount for a soap. So they say that they're into the luxury segment of it, and that is where and obviously I mean making soap from donkey milk and something which is not readily available, it is bit challenging. But that is how they have positioned themselves into the market as a skincare product using donkey's milk. So the correct answer is
Okay.
donkey milk. So would you want to use this soap, Sujoy?
No.
Yeah, I mean, think. I mean,
No, sir.
so from a perspective of a common man, one
It's
might think that
t-
yes, yes. Please go ahead.
yes, like we our thinking will be 10 soaps will come in 500 rupees. So like that.
Yes, that's very true. Okay, but I think that even there would be people who might not be very comfortable with the donkey milk as ingredient. I'm not sure. I mean, people don't have a very good impression of donkeys in their mind. I mean, from an animal perspective also. So, uh,
Yes.
yes, I mean,
That plays, I think, important role because sometimes I don't know for all of them, but here in local, as I just designing my small coconut shell. This one I am making some cup and sometimes out of coconut shell. And what is the thing? The same thing is happening here also. I mean, in our place in coastal Karnataka, coconut shell it's considered as like it's not used for any this one. I mean, drinking or anything. So that's why they just think which the product made out of which that coconut shell is not used everywhere. So they are getting customers in common people segment. They are getting only those who are very much, I mean, this one. Curious about this organic things and all those things. They are only the customer. The you can say page three people. So that thing they also discuss the same with me. So that's why maybe it may be
yeah, yeah,
donkey milk and those things. Yes.
yeah. And also, I think it is also important because I mean, people are not aware. I mean, what the donkeys are eating, and then the kind of milk they are extracting. How good it is. All these questions must be there in the mind of users as well. So I believe the startup would be working on making it more transparent and showing that it is all hygienic and those things.
Yes.
But then these are the concerns which ordinary users like you and me can have, financial, and then what they're eating, what quality it is. And these things are obviously as a matter of concern, these are there.
Yes, they need to give some the comparison how much. I think they might have that catalog and all, but why we are paying so much money for a soap? Then they have to give the justification. I think.
Yes, even I have not gone through their Shark Tank pitch. Probably I'll also see what is it that they have proposed.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. Okay. We'll move on to our next question. Which amongst these is a patented arm rehabilitation device, which was discussed in Module 9 as a case study? So, just to give you a hint, I mean, this is basically related to the be able question, which we discussed a couple of questions back. Patented arm rehabilitation device. The options are armable, be able, handable, and readable. Sorry, not readable, it's reable. So Beable is the company basically, the main
Yes,
company.
they is the company. Yeah.
Uh, so again, this is something which
It
is
may be
specific
reable or
or
reable or armable.
okay, okay. So I think arm is present here, arm is present here. There could be quite close possibility. But let me show you the snippet. I mean, you will be able to understand the product as well. So the correct answer is armable. It is the arm rehab device, and what they have done is that there is a screen. On this screen they project their game actually. All right, so you have got the game which is being played in the screen, and you have got this device. So basically this is a device. So it basically has a handle, and if you see on plan, it can actually move like this, it can move like this, it can move like this. So it has a different range of motions depending upon the person who requires whatever kind of exercise, whatever motion of exercise, it could be customized into that, right? So this is the entire setup, which is basically patented. And for the motivation part, they have the game. And meanwhile, the user is playing the game. He's also doing the exercise. But then all the data which is being, generated is also being tracked and stored into cloud. Okay, so all this data is also going to the healthcare expert also as well to understand, how much is the kind of exercise which the user is doing, how the progress is gradually. So in the video they showed one of the users, and they could tell that within weeks time the user was able to do 15 kilometers of motion through hands only within weeks time, and the ease of usage of their arm increased a lot using this. So they have got into a very interesting segment, and I hope that we'll be able to see these things very soon in the healthcare industry as well. So the correct answer is armable. Okay. According to Professor Surya in Module 9, Dash is a stage where one starts to work on the product and takes it to the commercialization level. So these are the different stages. So, say for example, you've got germination. So just to help you, I'm try to uh, place it on a timeline. Incubation. I mean, it will have pre-incubation as well, ideally. Okay. Accelerator. This is basically the
Yeah, it's
phase.
germination stage. Answer will be
Okay, you think that the answer is germination stage.
yes. Yes.
Okay.
as the I mean incubation means something at least if we go with MVP, then only I think there are more possibilities to get the incubation facility. So on that basis I'm telling.
Do you see the question? They are actually talking about the same one, starts to work on the product and take it to commercialization level.
But it's in incubation, I think.
Mhm.
Incubation in the incubation itself, they are going to work on
Right.
the product. Yeah.
Correct, correct. So let me share the image, and this will help you in understanding, the different stages. What we draw in the previous slide from left to right, it's been drawn in top to bottom. Okay, so it starts with the germination, wherein you have developed your own idea, and basically what we see is that the individual has an interest towards entrepreneurship and knows the basic skill sets. So from having an idea and interest to developing your startup idea, they have termed it as the germination stage. From idea to prototype, and that prototype can be developed in two ways. It could be academic, sorry, through academic channel or through the incubation channel. So this they have termed it as pre-incubation stage, and from prototype to a viable product, which is basically the commercialization wala aspect, is their incubation. Once their product is already running in the market and they would want to scale the operations, they would want to enter into different segment or increase the user group, they can actually use the accelerator stage or through their accelerator program. And then a commercially successful company can be turned it into a host kind of a stage. Okay. So the correct answer, as you also rectified and said, it's a incubation only. Great. We'll move on to our next question. As mentioned in the module 9 by Professor Renu, the phase 3 of CFHE process is about. So, just to remind, CFHE is about stuff for here. Sure. Okay. So, it has a four-stage process: phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, and phase 4. So, the question is that phase 3 deals in what? The options are market analysis, clinical immersion, ideation and brainstorming, and business pitch. Market analysis, clinical immersion, ideation and brainstorming, and the business pitch. So let me share an image, and that will help us understand, what we are talking about. So the term clinical immersion is basically about some kind of an ethnography study wherein, you know, the individuals are asked, basically individuals from the startup are asked to, witness the, say for example, they are into the surgical component, so they'll have to witness the surgery. They have to shadow the doctors, they have to shadow the patients and need to understand, what is happening, how it's happening. And that is how they immerse themselves into a particular environment to understand, what are the challenges, what are the problem being faced by the users. Okay. So phase 2 is basically about that. Phase three is about idea and brainstorming, wherein we are doing some kind of concepts generation, doing some kind of mentoring and business immersion. And phase four talks about prototyping and making business pitches, and presenting for the demonstration. Okay, so if we see, how this has been mapped, we'll be able to understand that phase three is about business immersion and idea and brainstorming. So the correct answer for the question seventh is ideation and brainstorming. All right. Now coming on to our eighth question. Which amongst these is an important learning from Nintendo Nintendo case study as discussed in module 9 by Dr. Nakul? The options you have are: an entrepreneur should be ready to face setbacks and support existing organizations during that period. An entrepreneur should be ready for market competition. An entrepreneur should not be dependent upon multinational corporations for funding. An entrepreneur should be flexible with his business pitch. Take your time, try to understand, what the question is, about.
I mean, they have to ready for flexibility in business, which means in what means actually after setting a company or
Sorry, Soja, I mean, your voice is breaking. I could not hear you very clearly. Could you repeat what you are trying to say once again? Or you may write it down in the chat box and I can actually read it.
okay, can you hear my voice now?
Yeah, yeah, I
Yeah.
can.
So flexibility in making that business pitch, it is like in which stage after setting a company or after commercialization or in which stage they are asking for.
Actually, these people who are into the gaming consoles thing, they were actually already they had the product and their company was there. Now they were wanting to
Okay.
get more customers.
Then they have to be ready for the competition. Second, I think.
Okay, but there was no direct competitions to them because, like I said, they were kind of pioneers in terms of bringing gaming to their homes of users.
Okay, okay.
So initially, we used to have arcade games like if you see in cities like Bangalore and all, you have that Amoeba, wherein it's a complete gaming zone. So there would be simulating a car seat wherein you can actually drive. Other people would be playing something else. So their idea was that why we should limit gaming to a particular space. Why not bring it to their homes? Okay, so ideally, I mean, in this particular scenario, they had no competitors when they were, getting into this mode of offering.
Okay.
So basically, what happens is that when you have something like this sort, which is not being conceptualized or not being seen, I mean, one needs to face a lot of challenges, right? Because it's something new. People are not used to it, and you know even getting on board into these things is a challenge. So they faced a lot of issues in terms of reaching out to the customers. So for example, what they did was that in the arcade zones, in those spaces, they installed these consoles, and they said that it is completely free, you use it. So that is how they generated some kind of word of mouth, marketing about that product. But it was working, but it reached to a limited audience. So they realized that they need to, position their product into places where there is a huge footfall of people. I mean, because this is something new which they have been coming up. So what they did was they reached out to these brands in like the Walmart, where which has a lot of stuff and a lot of people, they actually come in to buy those stuff. So they were in talks with them in order to get some space where they can put their products. And in this particular study, they said that, they Walmart, they said that, okay, you can, keep your products here, but then if there is a sale of 100 rupees, 70% share will be taken by me and you will take only 30%. Okay. So that is how they started. I mean, that they realized that, okay, let us first try to get to the market. Let's try to, connect with the audience, connect with the people, and they accepted that kind of a deal, at that time. But they turned the tables as well, Eventually, when their time come, when there was a huge popularity of Nintendo, and people were actually buying it, what they did was that, for example, if Walmart is saying that, okay, give me like 500 million products, they said that no, we don't have 5 million, but we have only, uh, you know, 3 million units. So they kind of limited the supply, and then they said that, okay, we can give you 5 million, but then you change our deal share. And that is how they worked upon those setbacks. And, so initially they supported Walmart and Kmart in terms of entering into their, space and then positioning their product into their, space. But then when they saw that, they have a higher hand in this whole setup, they changed the tables and the deal was reversed, later on when they saw that, people are actually needing it, people are wanting it, and how can we, shift the stage. So the correct answer is A. One needs to be ready to face setbacks and support existing organizations during that period.
Okay, I mean, it is in, I think, 2000, in that, I also played that video games.
Oh, you played
So that, yes.
this one only.
Uh, Yeah, no, I mean, this Nintendo only, I don't know which version. It was like just a normal thing. We can change just like floppy disk. We can change the games. I mean, so that thing, that kind of. You can play any kind of thing by putting it in, just like just same as a floppy disk. It was
Right.
little. Yeah, Spider-Man and many more games were there. You can play any of those based on our this one. So that's how I played that.
Correct, correct. Good to know that you have also been a customer of them. But as you said it
Yes,
correctly, I mean, they have got these consoles and wherein you can actually change. It is something like a cassette or a drive which you can actually insert in, and you
yes,
can have different set of games which can be played.
yes,
That's correct. Yes,
yes.
yes. Okay. Coming to the question ninth, second last question. As discussed by Dr. Nakul in module 9, FamPay offers Dash card for teenagers. Okay, so they are into offering a certain typology of card for teenagers, and they had a very interesting use case. How this startup actually was conceptualized. The options are credit card, postpaid cards, prepaid cards, and none of the above. So FamPay is a startup, and they realized an opportunity, in the teenagers. So normally, what we see is that in the current practice as well, that parents they kind of give some amount of pocket money to the children. It could be monthly, it could be 2 monthly or bi-monthly or whatever. But then, even in this practice, there are certain challenges that, if they are giving cash, then, they're kind of unaware that, where the money is going. I mean, what is it that they're purchasing? They need of kind of, want to monitor, what is it that they are purchasing, what is it that they're buying. So they captured into this particular scenario of, this practice of, parents giving money to the teenagers. and then their utilization. So they captured this entire ecosystem and they proposed a solution. So what do you think could be the answer?
It's a postpaid.
Okay. But as a parent, do you think you would want to offer their teenagers a postpaid card? I mean, which basically
Like
means that you consume whatever and you purchase
okay,
whatever.
okay, okay. Understood. Fine. So yes, no, prepaid only. To limit their this one.
Right.
But
Correct.
yes,
Correct. Yeah. So postpaid, what will happen is that, they will make a lot of amount of purchases. They don't have any control and eventually they have to pay. So, so So this is their
okay.
offering. They gave prepaid cards for the teens, and so it had a certain limit to it. And they leveraged this market because no banks were actually offering, this kind of cards to teenagers because they want them to be, after a certain age limit only they would open their, accounts. So they partnered with uh, IDFC First Bank, these FAMPay team, and they said that okay, we want to offer cards for the teens and you help us open the accounts, and this is my user audience, this is my target group, which is the teenager, and we'll be offering cards to them. And again, the idea was the same. All these transactions were basically mapped, and parents also were given access to an app where they can see, what is the kind of purchases, what typology of things have been bought by the teenage. Okay. So the correct answer is, as you said, prepaid cards.
Actually, I think I was thinking like a teenager. That's why I first selected this one. I mean,
Okay,
in the view of a teenager. So for the as a teenager, I mean, the customer stakeholder it changes. We can come to know that. I mean, how
correct, correct.
the point of view.
Got it, got it, got it. Okay, so now we come to the final question. The 10th question, which says, as mentioned in module 9 by Professor Surya, the process of giving an idea to an industry through IP, which is intellectual property, or technology transfer, is known as dash. So the options are entrepreneurship, commercialization, enterprise, and incubation.
Uh, it's like commercialization only,
Okay, so you are saying
because
commercial.
entrepreneurship means by using IP, I can start some startup or this one.
Correct, correct.
And incubation still it will be in the process of commercialization, like converting product into
Hmm.
this one. So I will be working on that. So commercialization will be the answer.
Okay, okay, let's check that. Okay, so this was the image which was presented. So idea can go through two channels. One is through the commercialization channel and one is through the entrepreneurship channel. As you rightly said that, idea under an incubated cell, it could then help you form a particular company or a startup. So this would mean that, we are taking the entrepreneurship route. However, if we have an idea and we are giving it to an industry uh, through patent transfer or through technologies transfer, this is basically the commercialization. So the correct answer is B, commercialization. You are very correct on that.
Okay. So I have one thing to ask. Like, if I am having, I applied for a patent and I didn't get till now. It's in published or something. It's in the middle of the process. So in that stage, can I approach any company related to that? And in that I mean stage itself, can I? You can say monetize it, or can I get some amount for that?
Okay. So that is a interesting question. I mean, I have not, although I have not heard of any scenario like this. But what I've seen in my current institution is that the technology transfer is happening only when the patent is granted. Okay, so those
Okay.
scenarios I have seen and I'm aware of, but I'm not sure up till now about those which are in the process and which for which the patent has not been granted, whether we can commercialize it at that instant or not. Okay, so I find it difficult, but I am not very confident on that. So probably I'll have to check, if that can happen. So your question is that if you have already filed a patent and if it is not yet granted, can you still do the technology transfer or not? Is it?
Yes, yes, exactly.
Okay, okay.
Because the thing is, in our Indian patent process, it will take time of at least 2 years or 2.5 years sometimes. So in that time of period, then it may be, I mean, that idea may get disclosed, or we can say it's just like anyone can make it. So that's why. That's why.
Mm, That's a good question, actually. I'll also try to figure out the answer to this question. And maybe you can also post this question as well in the discussion forum. Okay, so that will
Okay,
help
okay.
other learners as well. Great. So thank you for asking this question. We'll see if we can get a response to this question by the team or by experts.
Okay, sir.
Great. Okay. So now with this slide we end the set of 10 questions, and these have been the previous queries and the answers to these queries, which we have been able to address in terms of questions through content. And like this question was about the limited transcripts of being only till lecture 5. So we are yet awaiting the response from the NPTEL team. We'll see if we get a response. We'll try to explain it to the other participants as well. Now we are basically going to perform a content recap. I mean, this is something which is a recap of whatever we have seen in the lecture on basically the week 9 content. Okay, so I'll be taking a break of 5 minutes and then I'll start continuing it. If you want, you can also continue to be a part of this session, or if you want to leave, you can also leave. So it is completely upon you. Whichever the case is, I'll be starting in 5 minutes time. Okay.
Okay, okay.
Okay. So we'll quickly do a roundabout of the week. It will give a brief picture about what was taught, what was being transmitted by the experts. Okay, I hope. Let's see. Okay. Okay. So the week 9 module basically started with Professor Surya, who has a PhD from IIT Bombay, and he's basically at IIT Hyderabad and managing the incubation setup there. And he basically, gave this ideology of, what basically entrepreneurship is and what is commercialization. So if the idea goes through the channel of incubation and takes the shape of a company, it is entrepreneurship. And if goes through the channel of IP transfer, it becomes a part of commercialization. These are the different incubation opportunities or those things which kind of help the startups which are there in their entrepreneurship and their journeys towards setting up a startup. So these are the various facilities which are offered by the IT Hyderabad. This is how they have classified their entire process. What are the different stages wherein one can get into, right from germination to acceleration and host. Like I mentioned, they have these three main facilities where ITech is about deep technologies, CFHE is about the healthcare, and FabCI is about the electronics. Yeah. So FabCI is basically the chip design and incubator, and it is funded by MIT. CFHE is privately funded incubator, while ETIC is basically DST funded. So they say that we are a deep tech incubator, and we support startups and projects which provide technical value addition. So they are into these particular products, and that is how they have positioned themselves as an incubator. Also, what they say that we accept something which are more precise, which are helpful to a particular use case or a user group, and that's where they kind of accept those kind of proposals. They've also given an example of what kind of proposal they reject, which are much more generic in nature and should be much more precise. These are the various programs that I take. As I mentioned, these have been the different stages: germination, pre-incubation, incubation, acceleration. And this is the impact created by ETIC. There are more than 70 startups and 800 jobs created. I mean, great amount of impact which they have been able to create. And there are the different program partners and the granted agencies. They are working together with the IIT Hyderabad. This is their proud, offerings into acceleration, which is ASIA. And then these are the different startups which are there at ETIC. Manali Swing is the one, they talked about. The use of AI technologies, and how they're kind of using those technologies in terms of making it much more safer, the bungee jumping. Yeah. Then we had Professor Renu John, who's done PhD from IIT Delhi, and he talks about basically CFHE and what are the visions, what are the different outcomes from CFHE, and phase-wise CFHE process, which we also had a question on. So it starts with phase one, which is the design thinking, bio design, then going further with the immersion, followed by the ideation and brainstorming, prototype to the business pitch. This is the four phase of the CFG process. It discussed also about the Be Able company, which came up with this idea of armable solution, wherein they are kind of helping people with neurological issues in terms of health and practice, and how they are utilizing the gaming for the motivation part and engagement part. Then we had Professor Nakul. He was basically giving a lot of examples, about the various companies and how his theories of, what are the relationships and how you can actually utilize those relationships when you are into the market. So, like he gave examples of Organico, which uses donkey milk. So they are getting into the luxury segment of luxury skincare. Then you have, how do you break the shell? You need to be integrative, you need to be summative and interdisciplinary. Then there was an example when Nitindo, um, which is about gaming, and taking the gaming to the houses of the people, from the arcade version to coming up to the residence of the people. And then again, this was about, how do you take, plan to action. And finally he shared this particular model of value creation. So this was about the week 9, and I believe all of you are doing great. Doing, the health is fine, and everybody is doing perfect. We will now be closing the session today, and we'll meet next week once again. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Suja. Bye bye.